Diodurus, the writer of the Universal Histoi, Bibliotheca Historica. Diodorus Siculus, or Diodorus of Sicily, was an ancient Greek historian. He is known for writing the monumental Universal History between 60 and 30 BC, named Bibliotheca Historica. He was born in circa 90 BC in Adjara, Sicily, according to his own work. And he died at the age of 60 years in circa 30 BC. He titled his work Bibliotheca Historica, because bibliotheca means library, and historica, the history. So he intends to present a universal history, covering the entire world, and all periods of time, until his day. He might thought the name bibliotheca an apt word, as he was assembling a composite work from many sources, and from the works of many other authors, including
Hecataeus of Abdera, or of Teos, was a Greek historian, an ethnographer, anthropologist, and philosopher of circa 4th century BC. Lived in Egypt, and composed a history of Egypt.
Tisias of Cnidus was a Greek physician and historian who stayed at the court of the Persian king Artaxerxes II around 400 BC. Tisias wrote several books about Persia and India, entitled Indica and Persica.
Euphorus of Syme was a Greek historian and the author of the first universal history. He was a pupil of Isocrates, together with the historian Theopompus, in rhetoric, in circa 4th century BC.
Theopompus was a Greek historian and a pupil of Isocrates, in rhetoric, skill in high-flown language usage, and writer of the Hellenica, the history of Philip.
Euryonymus of Cardia was a Greek general and historian from Cardia, in Thrace, lived around 350 to 250 BC, and a contemporary of Alexander the Great.
Diodurus of Samos was a Greek historiographer of the early Hellenistic period, lived around circa 340 BC to circa 270 BC, and the author of a narrative history of events in Greece and Macedonia, from 371 BC to 281 BC, not available now. And a life of Agathocles of Syracuse, and a number of treatises on literary and artistic subjects.
Diodurus was probably the son of Phonodamus, the Ethidographer, a chronicler of the local history of Athens and Attica, wrote a universal history of the years 357 to 96 BC. His work seems to have been a continuation of Epirus history.
Philistus was a Greek historian of Sicily, lived around 430 BC to 356 BC, during the reigns of the tyrants Dionysius I and Dionysius II. He composed the history of Sicily in 11 books.
Timaeus lived around 345 BC 250 BC, was an ancient Greek historian. He wrote around 40 books on the history of Greece, titled The Histories.
Polybius was a Greek historian of the Hellenistic period, noted for his work, The Histories, which covered the period of 264 to 146 BC in detail.
Posidonius, 135 BC, 51 BC, was a Greek Stoic philosopher, politician, astronomer, geographer, historian, and teacher. Born in Apamea, a Roman city, in Syria, he was acclaimed as the greatest polymath of his age.
Bibliotheca Historica discusses the relevance of history, or the significance of the events and issues in the history. It's been still debated, the degree to which the text that follows is derived from earlier historical works. This monumental work was immense and consisted of 40 books. Now we have only 15 books intact. Those are 1 to 5 and 11 to 20. Fragments of the lost books are now preserved in Photius Lexicon, and the excerpts of Constantine Porphyrogenitus.
Photius was a saint, or patriarch, of Constantinople, and leader of the Orthodox Byzantine Renaissance, and collector of books and excerpts, in 9th century AD. Constantine Porphyrogenitus was a Greek emperor, Byzantine emperor, and collector of huge books, in 10th century AD.
The earliest extant manuscript of Bibliotheca Historica is from about 10th century. In and around 1472, Poggio Bracciolini, Italian humanist, calligrapher, and scholar, translated the first 5 books into Latin, named the Editio Princeps, at Bologna. The Editio Princeps of Diodurus was a Latin translation of the first 5 books by Poggio Bracciolini. Vincentius Opsipoius got the Greek original books from 16 to 20, printed at Basel in 1535. All the surviving books, and the surviving fragments of books, from 21 to the end were published by Stephanus at Geneva. Diodurus arranges the history in 3 parts in his Bibliotheca Historica.
The first part consists of 6 books. And are arranged geographically. They cover mythic history up to the destruction of Troy, mainly of non-Hellenic and Hellenic tribes. Hellenic means relating to Greece. They also describe regions around the world, from Egypt, India, and Arabia, to Europe. The book 1 in the first part deals with the history and culture of ancient Egypt. The second book covers the history and culture of Mesopotamia, India, Scythia, in present-day Romania and Bulgaria, and Arabia, today southern modern Syria, Jordan, the Sinai Peninsula and northwestern Saudi Arabia. The third one treats the history and culture of North Africa. And the books from 4th to 6th tell about the history and culture of Greece and Europe.
Part 2 consists of the books from 7 to 17. In these books, the history of the world, from the Trojan War down to the death of Alexander the Great, is narrated.
Part 3, the last part, has been lost. Only some excerpts are available. It is supposedly consisted of all the remaining books, from 18th to the 40th one. It is considered to have the historical events from the successors of Alexander, down to either 60 BC, or the beginning of Julius Caesar's Gallic Wars in 59 BC. Gallic means of, or pertaining to France, or the people of France.
Each book begins with a table of its contents and a preface. These are now generally agreed to be entirely Diodorus' own work. Books 6 to 10 are entirely lost, which covered the transition from mythical times to the Archaic period, are almost entirely lost. Books 11 to 20 are completely intact, and events between 480 BC and 302 BC are covered with the annalistic structure, a chronological account of events in successive years. Books 21 to 40 are mostly lost. They brought the work down to Diodurus' own lifetime, terminating around 60 BC. Diodurus drew on the history of Polybius, and also used in his books 21 to 32, which largely survives, and can be compared against Diodorus' text, though he may also have used Philinus of Agrigentum, and other lost historians. Philinus wrote about the First Punic War, 264 to 241 BC. It was the first of 3 wars, fought between Carthage, present-day Tunisia, and Rome, the 2 main powers of the Western Mediterranean, in the early 3rd century BC. For 23 years, in the longest continuous conflict, and greatest naval war of antiquity, the 2 powers struggled for supremacy. His liberal use of earlier historians' works attracts both positive and negative opinions among historians.
Diodorus mentions his earliest visit to Egypt was between 60 to 56 BC, in the Olympiad. Olympiad was the ancient Olympic Games, held in Greece for 12 centuries. Beginning in 776 BC to 393 AD. The latest event Diodorus mentions is Octavian's vengeance on the city of Tauromenium. It is presumed that he could have published his book before 30 BC, only because he did not mention in the book about the capture of Egypt by Romans in 30 BC. For the composition of this book, Diodorus asserts that he made an immense historical research for 30 years and undertook a number of dangerous journeys through Europe and Asia. Some modern critics have called this claim into question, having found several surprising mistakes that an eyewitness would not be expected to have made. But many others disagree, and says Diodorus offers the only chronological survey of the periods, and supplements the writers mentioned and contemporary sources in many matters. Charles Henry Oldfather translated his book into English and made many favorable comments, such as, while characteristics such as these exclude Diodorus from a place among the abler historians of the ancient world, there is every reason to believe that he used the best sources, and that he reproduced them faithfully. For the period of the successors to Alexander, 323 to 302 BC, books 18 to 20, he is the chief literary authority, and his history of this period assumes, therefore, an importance which it does not possess for the other years.
Thank you for watching this video. Please like it, share it, and subscribe it. For more and more interesting topics, programs, and news, please visit our website www.mamlabs.net. Presented by Media Alma Mater Labs. Mam Labs.